Lisa Hansel is a human resources manager with over 20 years of comprehensive experience in human resources management and workforce administration. She oversees the full spectrum of HR operations, including recruitment and talent acquisition, onboarding and termination processes, policy development, employee relations, benefit administration, and regulatory compliance. Throughout her career, Lisa has worked closely with organizational leadership to develop structured hiring practices, strengthen workforce planning, and ensure compliance with federal, state, and local employment laws. She provides strategic guidance on performance management, disciplinary action, investigations, and unemployment matters, bringing a thorough and solutions focused approach to workforce challenges. Drawing on decades of hands-on experience in recruiting, onboarding, and employee retention, Lisa will address the financial, operational, and cultural impact of ineffective hiring practices in her presentation, The Cost of a Bad Hire. Please join me in welcoming Lisa Hansel.
Thank you, Paul. I appreciate the introduction, and I just want to say welcome to everyone, and thank you for being a part of this presentation today. I will let you know that normally my presentations are on a stage and I'm walking back and forth and a lot of hand movements. Today, doing this through a virtual process, so we'll see how this goes. One thing I do want to say with this process, due to the timing, if you do have any questions throughout the presentation, please ask them in the chat. We will try to cover as many of them as possible at the end of this overall presentation. And so today we're discussing the cost of a bad hire and the impact hiring mistakes can have a huge impact on your organization. When we think about hiring, we often focus on finding the right candidate, but we don't always think about the consequences when a wrong decision is made. A bad hire can affect finances, productivity, team morale, and culture. Today, we'll look at both the visible and hidden costs of hiring mistakes and how organizations can reduce that risk. We'll begin by defining what a bad hire is, and then we'll review the direct financial costs organizations face when hiring the wrong person. We'll then explore hidden impacts such as productivity loss, cultural disruption, and finally, we'll review warning signs, prevention strategies, and a real-world cost example. To start right off, I want to do a quick audience poll. I want to know, and you can respond in the chat, and you're going to simply put yes or no. Have you ever experienced a bad hire? And if you answer yes, how long did it take you to realize that? Sometimes in HR, we figure it out almost immediately, and sometimes it takes quite a while for that to happen. A bad hire is an employee who negatively impacts productivity, culture, or finances. This can happen due to poor performance, behavioral issues, misalignment with the role or company culture. Sometimes the issue isn't about their ability, but it's more about their fit. Even someone with strong qualifications may not align with the team or expectations of the role, and sometimes we don't know that till they're actually already hired and working for us. This topic matters because hiring mistakes are expensive. The cost goes far beyond salary and recruiting expenses. Bad hires can affect morale, productivity, customer service, and employee retention. In some cases, the ripple effect can impact an entire team or department. We talk about direct financial costs. The most visible expenses include their salary, the benefits, the payroll taxes, signing bonuses if you have them, equipment, tools provided to the employee. In my situation, we actually have tools that are required of the new hire. So the cost of those tools that they purchase themselves now then becomes a bigger impact even for that employee if they choose to leave prior to a 90-day beginning process for them. Even if an employee leaves after a very short time, organizations have already invested significant financial resources. Your time is worth money. Recruiting a new employee also requires resources. Organizations may spend money on job postings, recruiter fees, background checks, and interview expenses. Manager and HR interview time is another major cost that is often overlooked. I think about the way that we go through hiring. We're currently using Indeed and have been for quite some time. Indeed has changed the way they are now allowing you to post. A lot of it used to be free, and if you post free, then your ad is all the way to the bottom. The more you advertise through Indeed and the higher the money, they have 3-4 different tier levels. So basically now you put a post out there, and if it is for free and you've used it previously, they will no longer allow you to use that same post. Now they're saying change the post enough, the job description enough, so that it looks free, or that it looks new, I'm sorry. And then they may consider posting it. Otherwise, you're going to have to determine how much you want to spend, $25, $30. The higher level amount that you spend with Indeed, the more opportunities you have to reach out and recruit individuals yourself, but you're going to pay $75 to $100 or more. So Indeed has really gone away from getting a lot of employers to post with them to a lot of employers posting with them and still and now charging a lot more money. So in chat, I'd like to know, where are you currently posting jobs at? Are you seeing this with Indeed as well? Is that the only place? Are you still using newspapers as a source? Where are you currently posting to get the information out? Are you using a recruiter? I see, Julia, you indicated LinkedIn. That's another great resource, but what if it's just for a simple labor position, general labor? Where are you posting today and seeing that and I see Facebook and I see company internal, but how are you drawing those people to those locations, and how are you getting those recruitments? So again, when you talk about recruitment costs, it really used to be, your local newspaper, that's gone away. There's been even TV ads. Well, which channel do you put them on now? So again, every area that you are posting job positions are areas that are costing more and more money to do that. Training and onboarding costs require additional investment on top of that. This includes orientation, trainer time, system setup, and training materials. During onboarding, productivity is typically lower when employees learn their responsibilities. If the hire does not work out, that investment is lost. And let's talk about productivity loss. A lot of that is not thought of. HR goes in, they hire the individual, they get them through orientation, and then they send them on to start working. So productivity loss is often one of the biggest hidden costs. And it's something we don't really think about. A struggling employee may work more slowly, produce more errors, or require additional supervision. Managers may spend significant time coaching or correcting work, which impacts the productivity of not just that individual, but the entire team. Sorry about that. Okay, operational disruption and cultural morale impact. especially today when we're talking about culture and what you want to see in your business and your organization, a bad hire can disrupt team workflow and operations. Everything may have been working smoothly with a previous employee that was there, and now you have to replace that employee. And you go through all of those expenses to get that individual there. And then you have issues with the team workflow interruptions. Projects may be delayed and customer service might be affected. There can also be cultural impacts such as frustration, conflict, or loss of confidence in leadership's hiring decision. So this is where that blame game comes into play. Who's responsible for this? Is it the leadership that didn't clearly provide what they needed to HR for them to be successful in this hire? Or was it HR that didn't take the time to devote to really figuring out if this hire fit that job description? Bad hires can create a ripple effect with teams. High performers may feel frustrated or overworked if they are compensating for someone else's performance issues. It leads to burnout and potential additional turnover within the organization. I know in our current organization, turnover is something that we strive not to have. And we put things in place such as a phone interview. I don't know if many do phone interviews prior to going through the process of actually interviewing a person. You find out a lot on a phone interview. And with that, you will be told stories that are not consistent with what they actually show up and can do. But it is also a really great way in advance to eliminate the possibility of someone not truly being able to answer questions related to the job description. And it might take you more time as HR to do that, but it also allows your leadership not to have to engage with someone that really truly is not qualified for the position. So when you talk about legal and compliance risks, in some situations, there may also be legal compliance concerns, termination disputes, unemployment claims, wrongful termination allegations can arise. These situations require time, documentation, and administrative effort. And if you've been in HR for as long as I have, you've encountered every single one of those. And recently, just had an individual that was hired. I like to give an example of where the legal and compliance part of this comes into play, and why sometimes, again, when I go back to that phone interview process, had an individual we hired, and that individual came through that phone interview with flying colors, didn't see any red flags, brought him in for an in-person interview. Management felt the exact same way, was able to answer all the questions, and ultimately we hired this individual. Well, when the individual had to go through training, there was a 2-week training process. Now you got to remember, I've already invested my time in the interview process twice, because I've done the phone interview, and then part of HR, we sit in the actual interview. And so now beyond that, now this individual is having to travel to our location in order to complete the training. So now you have the expense of their travel, you have their hotel expense, because the training required 5 days for 2 weeks each. And at the end of that, we get a week and a half into the process, and this individual we learned rather quickly that even though his phone interview sounded good, and even though his in-person sounded good, his actual ability to be able to complete and perform the training process, he was not going to be capable of it. And his interest level became constantly on his cell phone, constantly not following through with what a supervisor or trainer was trying to teach him. And so we took our losses rather than continue that relationship on and try to continue to build, because that's what you want to do. You don't want to take the loss, but you also need to sometimes take that loss because it can cause further complications within the organization with management, with employee morale. So we terminated and made that decision not to move forward. Now we're back to square one. Now we're having to go back through that hiring process again. The cost of the ad, my time, the hiring manager's time. And needless to say, it was a good decision at the time because we now replace that individual with someone that is truly capable of doing all tasks at hand. So in certain roles, there may also be safety and liability risks. Employees who do not follow procedures or who lack proper judgment may increase the risk of accidents. This can lead to OSHA exposure, workers' compensation claims, or increased insurance costs. Studies have even shown a bad hire can cost 30% of annual salary minimum and up to 3 times for leadership roles. So it's extremely important to make sure that you're doing all the things in the process prior to bringing the individual in and hiring them. Again, for a case study scenario, just wanting to show if an employee is earning $60,000 and they're terminated just after 6 months, the organization has already invested substantial resources. When recruiting costs, salary, or training and productivity losses are all combined, your total cost can be beyond $75,000. Again, that's a $15,000 difference. Would it have been better to also maybe put additional time spent with the employee? Did they need additional training? Do you take the time to look at, are you doing everything you can? You've already invested 6 months. Does it make more sense to put more into this employee? Or is it better just to cut your losses and move on? So many bad hires can often be tracked to issues earlier in the hiring process. And that's kind of where I do talk about, what are you doing as HR? What are you doing as leadership management to make sure that job descriptions are up to date, that you truly have a structured plan in place, that everybody's on the same page between HR and leadership to know exactly what it is you're looking for. And a lot of times we rush and make decisions we've got to get this position filled. And when the team feels pressure to fill a role quickly, it can lead quickly to overlooking important qualifications or the cultural fit. Poor or unclear job descriptions can also create problems. Creating job descriptions takes some time, and it's a great investment in the company to get that done, because that's where it all starts. If you don't have good job descriptions, attracting candidates who may not fully understand the expectations of the role can create problems as well. Inadequate screening during the hiring process may allow red flags to go unnoticed, and even highly qualified candidates can struggle if there's a mismatch between their work style and the organization's culture. And today, culture means everything. And that's another area that you have to capture. What is your culture? And what are you talking about when you're talking to candidates? We have a set standard, and that standard is there's a lot of business out there, but the business that we decide to take is the business that we are the most proud of. We are going to give them, that customer, that standard as the highest level out there. And the reason we do that is because we don't want to spread ourselves so thin that we're not giving and treating our customers with the highest amount of respect. Is that your standard? That's a thing that you need to figure out as well, so that when you're talking to candidates, they know what to expect before they even come through the door. You have to have a good understanding of what your roles are, Are they seasonal? Are they temporary? Are they full-time? Those are questions that candidates want to know. And if you're not able to give those answers, you will have issues somewhere down the road. Again, structured interviews. If you don't want to always use the same questions over and over and over, you want to build it down to what that actual job description says. You also want to understand what behavioral questions to be asking. If someone gets extremely stressed in a volatile situation, you need to understand up front how they're going to handle that. You also need to be questioning their skills. On a phone interview, they'll tell you they have every skill out there, that they've been doing the job. I've done everything. And you can ask them an array of questions that will give you some answers. But most of them have a little bit of knowledge just to be able to answer that question appropriately. And then you bring them in and making sure that the hiring manager already knows ahead of time the questions that you've asked so that they don't repeat those questions, but ask something beyond that to make sure that you, number one, understood the role. Number two, that they also have deeper questions that will give them the answers they need to make sure that the candidate is not just giving answers to be answering. And one of the things that was very old school, so to say, over all my years, I used to do reference checks all the time. And with HR today, reference checks are a little more difficult. HR is so busy. They don't have anybody else allocated to do all the reference checks most cases. And they're very limited in the things that they can tell you. You still need to be doing them. Reference checks will still show if a candidate is telling you the truth. Did they work there? You can verify their time frame. You can verify their titles. You can find out some companies will tell you everything and you don't have to ask anything. But if you're not doing the reference checks, you're missing an opportunity to get to know more about what's going on with your hire. And HR's place.
Lisa?
Oh yeah, I'm sorry.
I'm sorry to interrupt you. There was one question in the chat that I wanted to run by you quick from Jeff.
Sure.
He asked, how do you address the people who want more than you offer? I have commission positions and they want hourly more than willing to do a commission.
Again, that's a great question. As an organization, that's kind of something that you need to make a decision about prior to them asking that question. As an organization, you need to determine what are you willing to give. And when you have that question come up and you don't have the answer, it's something that you need to go back to leadership to say, it's a question that's being asked and what are we willing to do? And if the answer is it's strictly commission based, then that's the answer you give the candidate. And you may or may not be losing a potential great candidate. But again, it starts with upper management leadership deciding what they're really truly willing to spend at the end of the day. Did that answer Jeff's question?
Perfect. Thank you.
Okay. So again, just to go to HR's role as a business partner, HR plays an important role as a strategic business partner by helping organizations plan for current and future workforce needs. A lot of times HR isn't looked at as being a part of helping the organization. It's like they're their own separate department and you hire, and when I tell you to terminate, you terminate. That's just not true. They have to be looked at as being a part of the whole role of everything that goes into not just hiring, but also terminating, benchmarking. If you do KPIs, all of that still needs to have interaction with management. Through workforce planning, HR works with leadership to anticipate staffing demands, identifying skill gaps, and ensure the organization has the right people in the right roles to meet business goals. And that kind of ties into exactly what Jeff was asking. Again, HR is getting the information from the candidate, and now they don't, if that hasn't been pre-structured, they don't really know how to respond to that. But also, you're going to have questions like that, and if you don't have the response, it's still fair to tell the candidate, I'll get back to you. You know, you always let them know, appreciate their input, appreciate what they've got to say. It's something that you would, you know, like to take up the ladder and talk to somebody about. At the end of the day, they're looking for exactly what you're looking for: transparency, openness, and honesty. And also, it's a proactive approach, helps reduce reactive hiring and allows teams to prepare for growth as well. It helps you to prepare for turnover, changing operational needs. Another thing that HR supports better hiring decisions through the use of hiring analytics, which provide data and insight on metrics such as time to fill, turnover, and quality of hire. Again, if you're not tracking those types of things, you are going to continue to struggle to fit each position with the right candidates. So your key takeaways: bad hires can be extremely costly for organizations, and HR needs to let others know that, not only in terms of financial resources, but also in their impact on team performance and workplace culture. The costs associated with recruiting, onboarding, training, lost productivity, and potential turnover can add up quickly when the wrong hiring decision is made. Beyond the financial impact, a bad hire can also affect team morale, can create additional stress for coworkers, and disrupt overall productivity within a department. And because of these risks, organizations benefit from focusing on prevention rather than correcting, investing time and effort in stronger hiring practices, such as clear job expectations, effective screenings, and structured interview processes. Can significantly reduce the likelihood of a poor hiring decision. In the long run, preventing a bad hire is far less costly and far more beneficial than having to replace one after the damage has already been done. And so I end this with one more example of something that just recently happened. I have an individual, the one that I said we had to replace. It cost us a lot more to go out and hire this individual. So as we're going through the process and he is observed on his cell phone, we decide we're going to take action. I, as HR, am saying, what type of action do you want to take? And I bring that to the table. I'm not questioning the supervisor that wanted it done. Was a verbal written warning for being on his cell phone for 30 minutes. I, on the other hand, look at that about the cost it's going to take to replace this employee that has already proven in the last 6 months that he's very worthy of handling the job. I'm not jumping right on board with management or the supervisor to say this is necessary. What I need is an understanding why we are risking replacing this individual. And as HR, I think that's your role to make sure that you have the appropriate answers to make the decision, and also respond by saying, by doing this, this is what it's going to cost our company to replace this individual. Is a conversation with that individual more appropriate so that they understand your expectations? Or do we just jump to the point of writing somebody up, they take offense to it, and they leave your culture? So I want to thank everybody. I appreciate you taking the time to speak with me today, understanding the true, I hope after this that you've understand the true cost of a bad hire, and some of the things we talked about helps highlight why strong hiring practices are so important for the long-term success of your organization. Thank you.
Thank you for attending today's Workforce Knowledge Series. On behalf of the Business Services team, we want to thank our speaker, Lisa Hansel, for sharing such valuable information with us. There's a link to our survey that has been put in the chat. We would greatly appreciate it if you could take a moment to complete it and share your feedback. Your input helps us to improve our events and to better serve your needs. If you have any additional questions, please feel free to add them to the chat and we will be happy to forward them to today's presenter. Our next Workforce Knowledge Series will be held on April 9th at 11:30 Central, 10:30 Mountain. We hope you can join us. We also want to remind you that jobs in the 605 statewide virtual hiring event on March 18th can also be found. You can have full details on our website at dlr.sd.gov/hiring events. We hope to see you there. Again, on behalf of the Business Services team with South Dakota Department of Labor and Regulation, thank you for joining us today. We look forward to seeing you next month. Have a great day.